Good day everyone. Today we will walk through the beautiful historical part of the lesser town in Prague. And before we continue, so I would appreciate when you can give me a thumbs up, when you enjoy this walk with me, and if you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel yet, I would appreciate a subscription so that the community of the people behind the culture can grow. And first, we will walk towards the Charles Bridge and the lesser town bridge towers. Then we will continue to the Baroque pearl, the Church of St. Nicholas, which is the dominant feature of the lesser town. And also we will look into the interior of the Baroque Church of St. Nicholas. Then we will continue along small side to the famous John Lennon Wall. And along the way we will look at the exterior of the another church of Our Lady Under the Chain. And we will look at the interesting paintings of the John Lennon Wall. And then we will go further back towards the Church of St. Nicholas and continue next to the church along a small side to the Monastery and Church of St. Thomas, which has been standing for almost 800 years, and so we will look inside the Church of St. Thomas. And I must say, the church looks magnificent. And it is a very interesting sacral architectural building which presents three building epochs: Gothic, Renaissance and Baroque. So I believe that you will like this walk, which I filmed during an above visit has visited Prague. Of course, you can do this walk in 2 hours, and I believe that the walk will interest you so much that you can do it in the spring by yourself and take this walk as a good tip for a walk along a small side of the Prague when you get in Prague. We start our walk with history at the very beginning. The history of the lesser town dates back to the 9th century, but the official character was given by Přemysl Otakar II, who founded a new town for German immigrants. When Charles IV later has built his new town, renamed the original name to smaller, and then its name has been stabilized in today's lesser town. In the 10th century, there was a road made along the river made of wood from one break to species. It was 80 cm thick construction, which was a thorough carpentry work. This unique journey seemed to strengthen the terrain often flooded by the river and may have connected the above broads. It is not excluded that at the time, probably in the place of today's Mannes Bridge, there was a wooden bridge. In the 11th century, there is no doubt about the existence, because in 1157 it was destroyed by a flood, and so from 1165 to 1172 it was replaced by a stone bridge, the oldest stone bridge in Bohemia, named in the queen name Hudied, so named Hudied Bridge, which was the forerunner of the Charles Bridge. Hudied Bridge stood only a few meters away north of today's Charles Bridge. The lower Hudied Tower, nowadays known as the Lower Lesser Town Bridge Tower, at the end of the Charles Bridge, was originally one of the Hudied Bridge. In February 1342, Hudied Bridge collapsed in large water. The terrible flood destroyed all weirs and mills. There were a lot of victims, but the loss of the crown of the kingdom, the Prague Stone Bridge, was generally considered a disaster. Only in 1357 began Charles IV built a much more perfect replacement, still standing Charles Bridge, completed around 1400. Emperor Charles IV made a greater urban development of a lesser town, a significant expansion of its territory to the south, which is the years 1360 to 1362 in a large arc, and the Hungry Wall in the large arc. And a significant part has been preserved to this day. At the time of Charles IV and Wenceslas IV, a number of new churches, monasteries, palaces, houses were built, and many reconstructions were made. The lesser town significantly came to life for the reign of Emperor Rudolf II, who moved the imperial court to Prague. Now let's talk more about the lesser town bridge towers. The lower, lesser town bridge tower is one of the oldest preserved buildings in Prague, called Hudied. It is Romanic in its core. It remembers the times when the Knights Hospitaller settled in the vicinity of the first stone bridge over the Vltava River. In the 12th century, the Knights Hospitaller complex was the first building at this end of the bridge. Romanic style and ashlar masonry we date it to the second half of the 12th century. The Renaissance renovation of the lower began in 1591. The battlements were replaced by Renaissance gables, and the facade was decorated with sgraffido ashlars. At the end of the 19th century, a briquette up niche was discovered on the facade, which contained a Romanic monumental relief. The lower tower is almost 30 meters high. If you want to look into the tower today, you can only do so from the house number 56. At the beginning of the 15th century, a prison for the most serious offenders was established in the tower. From the end of the 16th century until 1784, it served as a custom office. The beautiful Gothic gate was probably built during the reign of King Wenceslas IV. It consists of two gates, closing the area from Charles Bridge. It was closed with oak gates and an iron trellis. On the side closer to the bridge, behind the battlements, you can see the passage connecting the two towers. In the past, royal coronation processions used to travel along the path between the towers to St. Vitus Cathedral of the Prague Castle. Two stylistically different towers of unequal height connected by a gate form the entrance from the Charles Bridge to Lesser Square. The smaller tower is Romanic. It dates from the 12th century. The present-day Renaissance form is from 1591. The taller tower, from 1464, is a continuation of Parle's Old Town Bridge Tower, with its late Gothic architecture. From its balcony, there is a wonderful view of the flowing Vltava and the historical core of the metropolis of the Prague. The higher lesser town bridge tower was built after 1464 at the instigation of the Czech king George of Poděbrady on the site of the previous older Romanic tower. However, the previous Romanic tower was demolished as a result of the construction of the Charles Bridge. There is no doubt that the inspiration for the construction of the higher lesser town bridge tower was the nearby Old Town Bridge Tower, but it is not completely faithful copy of the Old Town Bridge Tower. We will not find such rich sculptural decoration here, and the places where the statues was supposed to be placed are empty. The current appearance dates from 1879 to 83, when it was restored by the prominent architect Josef Moker. The Marl Tower protected Lesser Town and was part of the left bank fortifications of Prague. The tower is 43.5 high. The gallery was founded at a height of 26 meters. Originally, it was probably intended to have rich sculptural decoration, but the niches prepared for the placement of statues remain empty. Over the centuries, it was used as a workhouse and due to its location also as a bell tower, similar to the tower at the St. Nicholas. At the time of Charles IV and Wenceslas IV, a number of new churches, monasteries, palaces, houses were built and many reconstructions were made. The lesser town significantly came to life for the reign of the Emperor Rudolf II, who moved the imperial court to Prague. In the lesser town, as the below part of the Prague Castle, the aristocracy palaces were established. During the 30 Years' War, the small side of the Swedish troops ravaged, occupying the left bank of the Vltava River and plundering it. After the 30 Years' War, the lesser town began to obtain a residential Baroque neighborhood, with many aristocratic places, churches and monasteries. After the establishment of unified Prague in 1784, the lesser town became its third district neighborhood. Today, lesser town, together with Hradčany district, is the best preserved historical places which fully preserve its original character and serve many filmmakers from all over the world as a unique space. Most of the lesser town with historical buildings are located in District Prague 1, a smaller pie originally in the Baroque walls, later built by historizing apartment buildings, is in Prague 5. Today, of an area of 1.5 km square meter, less than 6,500 people live here in the lesser town of Prague.
Merce viděti tanto mafie, tanto quanto la curva nord,
Nevím, jako lepší než Vítek, jo, ale...
Gamer is like...
I know exactly
yeah,
what one.
he's like a little bit of a raw and you get out some next thing.
Palaces then later have been used as either foreign embassies or ministries, Czech ministries.
Now we are heading the lesser town square, which is the center of the lesser town. At the time, the main market was extended at the lesser town square, and in the middle of its sloping terrain was built a new parish church of St. Nicholas in the 13th century, and it is the predecessor of the current church of St. Nicholas that was served as the gathering of the village because the town hall has not yet stood here. Current church of St. Nicholas in the lesser town is one of the foremost Baroque buildings in Europe and is referred to as the most beautiful building of the Czech Baroque. St. Nicholas, the most famous Baroque temple of Prague, stands together with the former Jesuits' professional house in the middle of Lesser Square. The dome of the Church of St. Nicholas has an average of 20 meters admirable. The inner height to the top is almost 57 meters high, which represents the highest Prague interior, which is also an excellent example of the decoration of the High Baroque. You can find out what the perfect embodiment of Baroque architecture looks like as soon as you enter the bowels of the temple. In front of you, an impressive space with luxury decoration opens. The beautiful ceiling fresco, one of the largest in Europe, is complemented with rich sculptural decoration and a sophisticated game of lights and shadows with the help of elusive frescoes completes the unique theatre of the nave. Visitors can also see the massive organ, which was once played by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. The church also offers access to the temple gallery, from where there is a view of the whole ship and a better view of the magnificent ceiling fresco, which is borne by the legend of the curious monk. The legend is about the painter wanted no one to observe him, and everyone saw his work when it was completely completed. But one of the Jesuit monks was so curious that he went to see the painter at work, hidden behind one of the columns. The painter, however, noticed him and drew him on the painting of the ceiling fresco as a character who observed everything hidden behind the column. At the ceremonial unveiling, the Jesuits were surprised, and the curious monk had a shame of God. The author of smaller and main temple organ was Jesuit Thomas Schwarz, who built a number of other instruments in the Czech Republic. The main organ was made in 1745 to 1747 and have over 4,000 pipes that reach a length of up to 6 meters. He played the famous Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart as a guest of the Duše family for his stay in Prague. St. Nicholas Church is a leading example of the developed architecture of High Baroque. Each incoming will amaze, especially with its dimension and monumentally conceived interior. The most important and characteristic dominant of the lesser town, together with Prague Castle, cannot miss any Prague panorama. The walls and elements of architecture equipment are covered with real marble and artificial marble by Jan Hennevugot and Josef Laurman. The walls are decorated with ceiling frescoes by Jan Lukáš Kraker, František Palek, and Josef Kramolin. The sculptural decoration in the form of wooden, white statuette and gilded sculptures, as well as small stucco sculptures, were mainly supplied by Ignác František Placer, partially Richard Jiří Prachner. The altar paintings were painted by Lukáš Kraker, Ignác Rab, Francesco Solimena, the cycle on the shore Karel Škreta. The left bank tram line, lines 12, 15, 20, 22, 23, 57, runs through Lesser Town. We are now going from the Lesser Square tram stop along Kunětická Street towards the Hudied and Lesser Square tram stop. In Lesser Town there are tram stop Hudied, Helichova, Malostranské náměstí, which is Lesser Square, and Malostranska, where there is also a metro station on line A, where we start our walk today. We will now briefly take a tram to the National Theatre and then continue along the streets of Lesser Town and the John Lennon Wall. The Church of Our Lady under the Chain is a Roman Catholic monastery church at the command of the Hospitaller Order. It is the torso of an unfinished, larger medieval Mighty church, begun in the Romantic style. The current church is only the chancel of the intended church. On the western side of Maltese Square, there is a stone Gothic facade formed by two later lower towers, between which there is a portico. The portico leads to the courtyard, which is approximately where the original Romanic church was, the remains of which are visible in the outer walls. On the eastern side of the courtyard is the entrance to the Baroque-style church, created by gradual modifications to the chancel of the originally intended Gothic church. On Prague Campa, near Charles Bridge, there is a brightly painted wall symbolizing the grave of this famous frontman of the legendary music group The Beatles. But it is also a place where people express their opinions and protest against the communist regime. The Lennon Wall is a special place. It lies hidden between gardens, embassies, Devil Channel, and Picturesque squares. It is a small, brightly colored piece of wall, covered in the thick layer of graffiti with a colorful history. Most of the brightly colored works are dedicated to John Lennon and the Beatles' song lyrics. After John Lennon's murder, a fictional grave of the singer was created on Campa. People began to paint symbols on the adjacent wall, reminiscent of the life and, above all, the work of the famous artist. Crowds of people began to flock to the artificially created place of worship, laying flowers or lighting candles. Graffiti decorations were created on the wall and lyrics from the Beatles. Songs were also placed here. However, the communist regime saw this is undesirable rebellion, and therefore the lyrics expressing the desire for freedom were whitewashed many times, but people quickly wrote them on the wall again. Even today, the wall is transformed day by day with new texts and paintings, even though they no longer have much in common with the original idea. And thanks to the benevolent owners of the Order of the Knights of Malta, everyone can leave their own message here, of course on the theme of love and peace. The original painting by John Lennon is unfortunately lost under dozens of layers of the past. It was last painted completely white in 2014 and in the spring of 2019 as part of the Meet Our event. It was repainted commemorate the 13th anniversary of the Velvet Revolution. The main motif on the wall was John Lennon and Václav Havel walking next to him. The last official repainting of the wall took place in 2022 when a large circular mirror was added to the wall. The original painting of John Lennon is unfortunately lost under a layer of new graffiti. On front of us is the monastery and church of St. Thomas in Leicester town. Near Leicester Square, the church of St. Thomas has stood in Josefská Street for almost 800 years. Even a layman will recognize that the unique architectural ensemble combines free building area, Gothic, Renaissance and Baroque. A number of important people are buried in the church crypt, and the work of one of the most famous chroniclers, Václav Havel of Libočany, is also related to it. The church was founded in 1285 by the Czech king Wenceslas II. And his invitation, the Order of St. Augustine Hermits, came to Prague when the king decided to open a monastery in the castle grounds of his royal residence. The year 1420 was a disaster for the church when it became the target of attacks during the Hudied War. A curious accident occurred in the 16th century when the church collapsed under the onslaught of spectators and the church burned down again. The Augustinians also called upon the then beginning Clan Ignaz Dizenhofer, later the most important representative of the Baroque architecture in Czech lands, to restore the sanctuary. The famous painter Petr Pavel Rubens took care of the interior decoration. In the interior you will also see ceiling frescoes by Václav Reiner, 4 paintings by Karel Škreta, and other exceptional works. Karel Škreta, a representative of a Baroque painting, even got married here in 1645. Another interesting feature in the main nave of the church is the beautiful organ with the original cabinet from 1728. Nowadays, the church with the monastery serve more for expats living in Prague. Ceremonies are held here in Czech, English, Spanish, and Filipino languages, and its core, the Gothic three-nave church, stands in the southwest corner of the monastery building complex. It has a slender prismatic tower covered with a pyramidal roof by the north nave. The axial tower above the south nave was never built. It is not explained why. The original masonry of the church is covered with a richly structured stucco, backdrop by Clan Ignaz Dizenhofer with a dome above the church. The inter-nave arcade have segmental arch, as do the galleries, and the 2 oratories in the church are glazed. The main facade of the church was designed in 1854 by Jan Ripota, the ceiling paintings by Václav Wawřinec, Renner on the dome, and in the chancel relate to the life of St. Thomas in the nave of St. Augustine. In 1637, one of the most important painters of the time, Peter Paul Rubens, had the paintings of the main altar, the Passion of the St. Thomas, and the smaller of St. Augustine made in Antwerp by the prior of the monastery, Jan Svitavsky. The original are in the National Gallery in front of the main altar. On the left is an altar with a Renaissance painting of St. Sebastian by Bartholomew Spranger. On the opposite altar is a Baroque depiction of St. Roca by František Xaver Pálek. The most important Czech painter of the early Baroque, Karel Škreta, is the author of 2 paintings, the Assumption of the Virgin Mary and the Holy Trinity. These are placed on 2 other altars facing each other in the chancel in a place under the dome. From the same Škreta period is also the painting, the Fortification of the Virgin Mary, placed in the sacristy, while his most important work here, St. Thomas of Villanova, on the first altar on the right, after entering the church, dates back to the artist's late period. The church houses one of the best works by the painter Antonín Stevens Steffield, the Crucifixion of the Altar of the Holy Cross by the middle right pillar. Stevens is also the author of the high-quality work St. Nicholas of Tolentino and the side pillar towards the altar and the paintings of the Holy Family with St. Anna and John the Baptist and the Nativity on the altar at the opposite pillars. And that brought us to the end of this tour of the lesser town. So I believe that interested you this part of the Prague. When you like this tour with me, don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't done yet. And I will talk to you later in another video. Tschüss.